What's going on, my fellow Twin Peaks aficionados? It is great to be back talking about part 5 of season 3 of Twin Peaks, or just Twin Peaks The Return. We got a little spoiled about 2 weeks ago when basically 4 episodes came out all at once, allowing us to do a massive deep dive. And I have to say that the initial feedback on my first 2 videos for Twin Peaks, the feedback was just fucking awesome. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people out there who are diehard Twin Peaks encyclopedic kind of reservoirs of knowledge and information, and they were helping me figure out some of the terminology and some of the characters, because I was kind of flying haphazardly and using some terms casually when obviously there's very specific terminology related to things like the Black Lodge, etc. and so forth. I come to this show more as a David Lynch rabid fanatic as opposed to a Twin Peaks fanatic, and there's some overlap in that Venn diagram, but they're not always the same thing. There are plenty of people who know Twin Peaks backwards and forwards but don't give a damn about his movies, and there's some people who really obsess over his flicks but don't really watch the original first 2 seasons because David Lynch only directed a handful of them. That said, I think there's room in this world for love for both, but the fact that David Lynch is directing each and every single episode of season 3, I feel like is a perfect harmony of the 2 worlds coming together, where both factions can kind of share their knowledge and expertise. I should say I've never read Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. That seems to be a resource that a lot of people really are drawn to. Hopefully between now and the end of the season, I'll get a chance to dig into it. But so far, been unable to take a crack at it. But I understand that it's a really kick-ass resource for a lot of behind-the-scenes information about the history of Twin Peaks, etc. So as I said in my previous videos, I'm not going to review these episodes like standalone stories like one might in a typical kind of police procedural. I look at episode 5 as part 5 in an 18-hour movie, and that's basically... It's hard to review a movie until you've seen the entire thing, and what I really look forward to doing at the end of the summer is watching all 18 in a row. Right now I think it's an exercise in futility trying to give weekly reviews. David Lynch, he's all about impressions and emotions and style, feverish dreamlike imagery, but he doesn't necessarily make a lot of narrative sense. And while this episode, I feel like, in a very good way, gave us a few little nuggets, people who are trying to figure out the plot, I think ultimately aren't getting it. That is part of the charm, but ultimately will not be what the show is all about. I think the show is all about having a heightened sense of experience, and so far I couldn't be happier. But what I loved about this episode is that it gave us a little bit more information on the mystery of Bob and Dale Cooper and Dougie. Now, I heard David Lynch refer to the Doppelganger Dale as Doppelganger Dale in an interview, but clearly he is Bob. And this episode absolutely, if it wasn't already abundantly clear, really locks it in place, because we have a scene where the Doppelganger Dale, aka Bob, is looking at his reflection in jail, and as he does so, he has a really intense flashback of a couple scenes from season 2 of Twin Peaks where Bob and Dale are side by side cackling wildly, and while he's looking at himself in the reflection, we can see Bob's face kind of superimposed on top of Cooper's face, and he says very ominously, "You're still with me. That's good." So clearly what makes Dale Dale is still tied up with Bob. But simultaneously, we get some interesting nuggets of information about Dougie. We see in Las Vegas, in the mortuary, the mortician who moonlights as a comedian, she's examining the body of Dougie, which is missing its head, and it's basically split all the way down the chest. The head looks like it was kind of split / removed. Clearly, Bob had a scheme where he created this empty vessel for Dale to embody so that he would be unable to return to his true form. Who Dougie was before all this, how Dougie came to be, how Dougie got his head removed, all these things remain unclear. But clear at this point, Dale's soul or mind or persona, whatever you want to call it, is split. It's divided between these 2 entities, and I get the sense that obviously at some point there's going to have to be a reconciliation between the 2, but sadly we did not get that yet. But if there are any doubt about the identity of the body, they do find a ring inside his belly, which is kind of gross, and the ring says, "To Dougie with love, Janie B." And I had to look up to find out who Janie is, but Janie is the character played by Naomi Watts, his wife. Janie, who's growing increasingly frustrated by the fact that Dougie basically is now a non-entity, except for the occasional word or observation that he makes. Although as we see over the course of this episode, he's starting to gain some ability to understand his environment, but he has a lot of great moments of comedy at his expense. He has a great bit where he essentially steals somebody's coffee from a tray and just starts guzzling it like a hungry baby who's like desperately looking for a nipple, and just starts feeling like waves of ecstasy as he gets the coffee into his system. But we have an interesting moment where Tom Sizemore, who works at the same insurance agency, is making a report about a claim that he feels is justified and the company's going to have to actually pay out. And Dougie, a.k.a. Dale, accuses him of being a liar. And he doesn't elaborate and doesn't add anything else, but it's almost like a little bit of Dale's analytical skills as an agent have suddenly emerged, and he's making an observation. Whether or not that means more of these skills will return, who the hell knows? But for now, at least, he's no longer completely just a blank slate. I know some people have been complaining about the fact that the show hasn't had enough scenes in Twin Peaks yet. They've been wanting the humor, they've been wanting the charm, they've been wanting the weirdness. But basically what they've been getting is a story that takes place in a variety of environments. And it's not about Twin Peaks, even though Twin Peaks obviously is a part of the story. But we do get a great scene with Robert Forster, who plays Sheriff Truman. And he's hanging out, I believe, in Hawk's office when his wife comes to visit. And she just starts blasting him for a whole laundry list of reasons, and basically she has a lot of complaints on the home front, including some leaking pipes. I'm a huge fan of Robert Forster. I guess I discovered him in Jackie Brown, but he also popped up in Mulholland Drive for David Lynch back in 2000, and his temperament and his style of humor goes together with David Lynch really well, because he sits there as polite as possible as his wife just blasts him like a fucking hurricane, and he just tries to offer simple, practical solutions to all their problems and that sort of thing. In any case, it didn't have a whole lot to do with the central storyline, but at least it made me laugh. And for people who want more Twin Peaks in their Twin Peaks, that scene definitely gave us some. So we get a lot more information about who Dougie might have been prior to all this chaos and confusion with his head being removed and Dale taking over his body, etc. The people that have been following him place a bomb under his car, but rather than killing Dougie, a child finds it, and just as the child's about to play with it, these hooligans or punks show up who want to steal the car. They shoo the kid away, they start the car, it blows up, all hell breaks loose. Meanwhile, the working girl that he had been spending time with, she gets her car washed, and the guy there discovers the key for room 315 in the Great Northern Hotel, and she kind of takes it, and we don't quite know how she's going to react, but she ends up just throwing it in a mailbox. What that's going to do, who the hell knows? But I have a feeling we are going to see this key again, because keys often play a really, really important role in David Lynch's work. Key in a box played a huge role in Mulholland Drive, so I imagine this key, we're going to see it several more times. It's probably going to play an enormous role in getting Dale back in full fighting form. We get an additional cast member in Twin Peaks this week with Amanda Seyfried, an actress that I particularly like. She's obviously a very, very beautiful girl. She's done a lot of movies and shows that I thoroughly enjoy. She plays a character named Becky, who stops into the diner to ask for money from Shelley. She begs and begs and begs. Norma, who appears again, she disapproves, but Becky ends up getting her money and going off with her loser boyfriend. Her loser boyfriend, we saw him in a job interview earlier where he just made a complete spectacle of himself. He obviously thinks he's really cool with his flashy car, but he basically just likes to hang out with this girlfriend and do drugs, and he's clearly squeezing her for money, and for whatever reason, she puts up with his nonsense. I hope we will see a hell of a lot more of her over the course of the season, but who knows what role she's going to play in the central storyline. We get a pretty savage look at the underworld of Twin Peaks as well, at the Roadhouse. I've been calling it the Bang Bang Bar. It seems like the appropriate name is the Roadhouse, but that sign says Bang Bang Bar, so I just like that name. But in any case, a band is playing at the Roadhouse, and for once it actually is not the final scene of the episode. And while this band is playing, there's this sketchy looking dude who's smoking. Someone comes over and tells him to put it out. He refuses. Someone else offers to step in and take care of it. The guy smoking hands him an empty pack of cigarettes filled with $100 bills. Clearly, the underworld of Twin Peaks is alive and well, as we know and love from previous seasons and movies, etc. And these girls who are at the table nearby are kind of curious that he looks like he might be kind of like a fun kind of outlaw type. But as soon as they make a move to talk to him, he starts choking them and threatening them and saying all sorts of foul shit. He obviously looks like he's going to be a very, very rough customer. Hopefully somebody will pistol whip him in the very near future. Maybe Robert Forster can play a role in that, but it'll be interesting to see what role he continues to play. But I like the fact that we got a little reminder that while on the surface, Twin Peaks is this idyllic, very peaceful, beautiful community, there's a dark underbelly, which is what makes David Lynch so cool, whether it's Blue Velvet when you have this perfect suburban environment with a dark underbelly, but he's always a master at showing something rotten beneath the rosy appearances or kind of wholesome appearance of everyday cities. So the last major scene of the episode that really jumped out at me was when the evil doppelganger Dale, aka Bob, he's about to be allowed his one phone call, and we're going to record it on video as he does it. One of the agents is examining his fingerprints. I'm not quite sure what she is seeing, but when Bob, aka Dale, makes his call, all hell breaks loose. Every alarm in the place goes off. Can't hear anything. It's this huge racket, and the agents don't know what's going on. He very quietly says the cows jumped over the moon, and as soon as he hangs up the phone, all the alarms end. Obviously, he didn't want anybody hearing what he had to say. At nearly precisely the same moment in Buenos Aires in Argentina, we see this little black box from the beginning of the episode. These two little lights go off, and it melts into this little molten nugget. What the hell that means? Who the hell knows? But I have a feeling he's probably referring to the fact that either the decapitated body has been discovered, or that Cooper is starting to gain some control over the Dougie body. Obviously, it's a crucial piece of information relating to this whole mystery, but what it actually means, who the hell knows? We might not ever even hear or learn who he is speaking to. I hope that is not the case, but David Lynch is not afraid of introducing a mystery and just letting it remain a mystery for all time. But on the other hand, as we see, sometimes he's more than happy to shovel out some information that we find essential and crucial, but he's just a wildly unpredictable storyteller who does not follow storytelling norms. So it's better just to accept what he gives us, but not get too frustrated when he withholds certain vital pieces of information. Episode ends in kind of a sad, melancholy way. Most of the episodes so far have ended with music in the Roadhouse, and those scenes have just been absolutely fucking phenomenal, especially the music that was at the end of episode 2. I've played it like 100,000 times on YouTube at this point. Huge fan. Which, by the way, YouTube has the first 2 episodes available for free, which is pretty cool. So if you have any friends who are on the fence thinking about watching it, send them parts 1 and part 2, because they are readily available, which I think is a great idea for bringing in a wider audience. But the episode ends with Dougie just hanging out by this statue doing nothing. He's told no loitering, but he has nowhere to go, and he kind of has no sense of purpose, and Naomi Watts clearly forgot to pick him up, or she thought that he would be able to find his way home. But it is kind of sad seeing how Dougie just doesn't know what to do with himself. But I think where it's only a matter of time before we see Dale Cooper in full fighting form again. And I think when he is back to his coffee-swigging, pie-eating, thumbs-up best, it's going to be a cause for celebration for Twin Peaks fans all around the world. I think we're all just biding our time and waiting. My question, though, is will Dale's recovery be the entire gist or premise of the entire season, or will he recover and then investigate yet another mystery? At any rate, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. My hope is that David Lynch is enjoying all the love and attention that this new series is getting, that he'll want to come back for a season 4. He's only 71 years old. He clearly still has a lot of creativity and a lot of fuel in his gas tank, and I feel like he's still capable of a lot of great work. And if this season doesn't resolve all the dangling threads of Bob and this spirit of menace that is kind of imbued in the woods around Twin Peaks, there very well might be more stories to tell. My hope, though, is that Dale and Bob are going to finally kind of go mano a mano and duke it out before the end of the season. But what the actual story or plot of this season is kind of remains to be seen, but we're 5 hours in, and I'm loving every second of it. So hope y'all are enjoying the show. Would love to hear your theories and ideas on what's going on in the Dougie, Dale, Bob triangle and how that's going to resolve itself. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really, really appreciate all the comments and support that I got on the previous 2. And yeah, I'll be back at y'all in a couple hours because I'm about to review the final episode of Season 3 of The Leftovers. But thank you so much for watching this video. Give me a shout on Twitter at Colbrax if you want to talk more. And I'll talk to y'all in the very near future. So long.